The colourful and adventure-filled world of video games has been inspiring people for generations. Harun Hassan Ali from Bradford has been inspired by this world ever since he was a child. This passion for games has led him to a career in the games industry.
So my love of games started when I was quite young. I played on my uncle's Amiga that he donated to us. My father then bought a bunch of the the classic 8-bit and 16-bit consoles at the time. So played the Master System, playing a lot of Sega systems, and then kind of the PS1, PS2, and so on and so forth. So I've always just kind of kept that love going from a very young age up until now and beyond, hopefully.
Using this experience, he has begun work on his own debut video game. Join us as we learn more about this Bradford Trailblazer.
My favourite games as a kid were a lot of platforming games, so I grew up playing the Sonic games. I then moved on to the PS1, so there was a lot of platformers on that console that I fell in love with, so the Crash Bandicoot, the Spyro games I particularly have a lot of fond memories of, and even the Oddworld games as well. So I made the decision of wanting to make games a career at a very young age. I was a kid, I was always like, I want to be a game designer, I want to make games, and that passion never died. So I signed up and enrolled at Bradford College to learn game development. I learned how to use programs like Autodesk, Maya, 3ds Max. So I learned how to kind of build models using box modeling and extrusion modeling.
It was at Bradford College that Harun would meet his good friend and pixel artist Faisal Hussain, of whom they would have a long-term collaboration.
So I met Faisal in my second year at college. We kind of grew a bit of friendship there. We were kind of probably the main two students that were really kind of proactive with expanding our knowledge in game development, specifically the 3D side of it. And we both went to the same uni together, and so we kind of grew our friendship there. We got to know each other quite well. We'd always kind of talk about, wanting to make our own games. We had ideas in the past about making something, and it wasn't until we did like the Yorkshire Games Jam a few years ago, we had an idea of a Yorkshire-based game, and we were kind of like, we like this idea, let's try and actually develop it further and actually make it into a real product. It's been an interesting process going through the creation of this game. Initially started off as just like a passion project, kind of slowly being worked on by myself, my brother and my friend Faisal. But we got some funding through UK Games Fund, getting a few grants, which really helped to inject some more motivation, enthusiasm and more progress into the game as we were able to bring on multiple different people to fill in roles that we weren't able to do initially. So getting more artists involved, getting programmers involved, music, to really help kind of bring this game to life. We've had a number of artists such as Faisal, Alistair, Tizuki, Yokos, Laura, Kaz, Mikhail, who have all contributed amazingly to the project, being able to create a new UI UX experience with inventory icons, inventory screens, updated logos. We've also had amazing character arts, both the in-game and combat versions, animations that really kind of help bring to life some of the horror elements of the game, but a lot of the comedic parts of it as well. We also had George, who has created an amazing soundtrack for the game using a a lot of tuba and horn music, and really kind of brings to life a lot of these environments and boss fights through his music. I thought it'd be funny to kind of do a humorous take on the north-south divide. So originally it was called Invasion of the Southerners, and there'd be stereotypical items that are associated usually with, say, London, like say black taxi cabs, phone boxes, the tube station, using those as like enemies in the game that you would fight. And you have to kind of like point out who is and isn't from the north. So that was the initial idea, and then it kind of evolved from there. Maybe they're aliens, and maybe instead of it being kind of too much about the North-South divide. It was just more of a comedic kind of alien invasion story, similar to that of, like, say, World's End. The Yorkshire Games Festival, we thought was like the best place to showcase it, because obviously it's a game set in Yorkshire, and we wanted to kind of present it to the public to kind of get some initial sort of feedback and suggestions of how to improve the game. There were a lot of young kids there. Even though the game is kind of more aimed towards teenagers, there were a few kids that did actually sit down and enjoy it and actually play the demo from beginning all the way to the end. There was one young girl who was really kind of engrossed in the characters. She did find it really funny and just stayed there for about an hour just playing the game from beginning to the end, and really kind of had a fun and enjoyable experience with it. Some of my favourite elements of the game is the reveals of the aliens, because, not to spoil it, but some of the unique animations that are playing on the unique boss characters that we have in the game are these really sort of like outlandish designs, and it really creates this really funny juxtaposition between this sort of normal elderly Yorkshireman with just this otherworldly element to it, which I just think is a very funny visual. There were a lot of challenges to overcome whilst making this game. Initially, I was very much open to just allowing for a lot of creative freedom as possible. That is a good decision to go for, but it was also a double-edged sword where there was some inconsistencies between, say, the script and the art style, so I was able to kind of figure out where those sort of teething issues were. So it was like I was able to bring in a bit more direction and focus, so I was still able to provide that creative freedom, but also making sure that it's following the vision and the intended direction for the game. So my hopes for the game is to have an initial release of the first chapter. We wanted to go for an episodic sort of style. We can bring out the first chapter, build an initial fan base, and then hopefully use the funds from our initial launch to help fund the subsequent chapters.
Harun has had a fruitful career in the games industry and has recently penned a book detailing his experiences working as a game tester in the industry.
I got approached to do the book because I've been very active in the development community for some time now. So I've been doing a lot of STEM work, going to local schools, primary schools, talking about games as a legitimate career option. I've been doing talks at various different events. So The Pocket Mentor for Video Game Testing is my very first book that I've written. It wasn't something that I was initially planning on doing, and I thought I'd actually write a book. So it's been a very interesting experience. One of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to provide knowledge about the games industry, as well as specifically the QA side of things, to an audience that might not really realize just how intricate the QA department can be. I also wrote it in mind for people who are either wanting to transition from a different industry into the games industry, or recent graduates and students. I really looked at this book as being like, what would I want to have known when I was their age? A QA tester, or quality assurance tester, is someone who plays a game and is intentionally trying to find errors and bugs in it. Essentially, you're trying to break the game in order to expose any sort of faults that can be fixed by artists, designers, or programmers. My first job in the games industry was a QA tester. I worked for a company called TT Games. They work on the Lego games. So if anyone's heard of Lego Star Wars, they're the original company that did that. I worked on a game called Lego Dimensions, which was a Toys for Life game where you have little Lego figurines, you put it on a pad, and they would actually appear in the game. There are a few chapters that really stand out to me. I think a lot of the earlier chapters with regards to the actual QA department and the different roles, identifying like what the hierarchy can look like in certain companies. It can be very simple, but in some cases it can be very complex. One of the other chapters I'm quite proud of as well is the chapter on mental health, because I feel like mental health is a very important topic to be discussed, and how it kind of plays a role in the games industry, because there are a lot of industry people who suffer and deal with imposter syndrome and burnout, and I think it's something to be aware of when getting into the industry, that these are these sort of issues that people have to deal with. So the best part about writing this book was being able to interview a ton of amazing people who are in the games industry or games industry adjacent, being able to meet various different people within the QA departments and learning more about their roles and the intricacies of what they do on a day-to-day basis. As much as it is quite a formal book, there are elements of my corny humor that's kind of sprinkled in throughout it. But when it came to actually marketing the book, I did ask if I could do a little bit of my own marketing campaign. I tried to promote the book in my own way, and I created a comedic parody trailer that, you know, emphasizes like the important elements of this book, but also being able to showcase more of my personality and more of my kind of humor. Have you ever wanted to be paid to play video games but not sure how? Well, let me introduce you to the Pocket Mentor's Guide to Video Game Testing.
Books galore.
In this book, you'll get advice and tips on the different career paths on offer as a games tester. You'll get advice on how to network, how to spruce up your resume, and tips and tricks for that always nerve-wracking interviewing process. as well as some tips and advice for when you finally land that job as a games tester. But hey, don't take my word for it. Have listened to these totally not made up testimonials. Oh!
This product is a product I endorse on my hat.
My name is Harun, and I approve this book.
My man. You see this book right here, my man? This is what you need. You need right here. Make yourself a groovy game tester.
You can purchase the book on Amazon. You can also get it through the publisher himself at the Routledge website. If they're interested in It's Grown Up North, you can wishlist it on Steam. So just search up It's Grown Up North, it'll appear, and hopefully by the time the video comes out, it'll actually be out, so you can actually buy it as well. There's a lot of pieces of advice that I can give about getting into the games industry. I think one of the most important ones is there are numerous different roles, specialisms that you can go down. It's not just the traditional art, design, programming. There are multiple different roles in a games company that you can be a part of and provide valuable insight and progression for a game. You can be the world's best programmer, you can make a great game, but if you don't have someone who is able to market it well, nobody's going to know about it. They're all interconnected. So anyone who works in a games company, it doesn't matter what role it is, you are a game developer, you are a game dev.
To conclude our time with Harun, we asked him to write down any words he lives by.
There are multiple paths. I think it's just a reminder that maybe you have one sort of path or desire that you want to go down. It might not always work out the way that you want, but there are always different routes available to you. I wanted to be a games artist. That didn't work out for me, but I managed to make a successful career in QA and now in production. So I might not have been where I wanted to be originally when I was younger, but I found a different path.